Uniqueness constraints, the next ones are mandatory. Mandatory means compulsory or necessary, so you must have it. These ones are pretty simple to do again, so you'll remember last time we had our uniqueness constraints. Yes, Henry?
Yeah, is it the opposite of optional?
It is. Well, I'm really pleased that you can read. Okay. We look at it like this and say, does an employee, if we record stuff about an employee, is it compulsory to record their date of birth?
Yes.
If we say yes, my bed's dying. Mongrel.
You don't have to know their birthdays.
Okay, so we're going to record their date of birth. Okay, likewise, if we record their date of birth, do we need to record the employee on the other end? Yes, we do. Okay, if we look at it very simply in a table, it might look like this. So here's our employee, here's our date of birth. Okay, so if we have Fred, and he's born on the 29th of the 5th, 80, for example, we're saying that we need both of those. If we have an optional one, we're happy with that and we leave that blank. Okay, or vice versa, we leave that blank and we put in, say, the 11th of the 10th, 92. Okay, so we're saying the only one we're interested in is that, so you must have both bits of data recorded. Okay, next one. Does a city need to have its population recorded? So again, it's for your actual database, so sometimes it might not be, but generally speaking, you would say yes it was, so we'll put a dot there. Okay, does a population need to have a city recorded beside it? Yeah, probably. Okay, you wouldn't do this. You wouldn't have, here's the city, there's the population. You wouldn't put 201,000 people in your database and leave that bit blank. That wouldn't make sense. So that's basically what we're saying to the thing. If you set these up properly, you will actually get, if it's a mandatory thing, it will say you must put something in here. Okay, next one along. Does a subject have to have a teacher? Yes? Okay, when I was a boy at uni, they used to have a third option called optional becoming mandatory. So you could have a subject set up in your database called brain surgery that currently didn't have any students enrolled in it, but it would become mandatory at some stage. So you wouldn't just decide we're having brain surgery as a subject and then not use it forever. Okay, but in NIAM, it's the stuff we use for our conceptual schema diagrams. You must use it. Okay, does a teacher have to have a subject?
Yeah, I guess so. But that could be unemployed, but still what else?
Okay, so if they're in the school database, it sort of makes sense that you would record that stuff. Okay, does a postcode, so if we record a postcode, do we need to record the suburb?
Yep.
Okay, so if you're putting down something like, so here's their postcode, here's their suburb. If you put down 4350, it would make sense that you put something here. Okay, leaving it blank wouldn't really help you much. Equally, if you put in something like East Perth, it would make sense that you would want to record something there. So leaving it optional is not really what we're after. Okay, next one. If we record a principal, do they need to have a school?
Yes.
Yeah. Does a school need to have a principal?
Yep.
Yep. So even if a principal is off on leave, for whatever reason, they always put someone in their place to be the head of the ship, I guess. Okay, again, a student, do they need a subject?
Yeah.
Yep. And a subject needs students, obviously, so you wouldn't leave one or the other. This one might be a little bit different. Does a student have to have an email address? Not necessarily. So it would depend. Obviously schools these days use them all the time, but let's say it's going to be optional. We would leave this side here blank, and I'll just put a big circle around it. If you want to do that on your exam to show that you understand, that's fine. Okay, but usually you just leave it blank. If we have an email address recorded, would we want the student's name put on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So looking at what we've done there, so here's our student, there's their email. Okay, we're happy to say Fred Smith and leave their email blank. So lots of things like signing up for certain things, you'll go through, remember they put little red asterisks on lots of fields that you need to fill in. So there's lots of things that they need you to put in when you sign up for whatever blog or whatever on a website, but lots of things. Equally, if we had something like this,
What does that say?
okay, so if we put someone's email address as abc@xyz.com, okay, would we record that without recording who it actually is? No, that's a bit silly. So that's why we're making it compulsory here. So the dot on the email is making it, I must have this recorded that way around. So if I record an email address, I must have the name of the person attached to it. Okay, last one, the ternary one. These ones are generally speaking compulsory. So can a student in a subject, so if we record the student, do we need to record their subject?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, you do, yeah.
Okay. Does a subject, so we record geography, IPT, whatever it is, do we need to have a student recorded beside that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Does a student in a subject have to get a result?
Yes, they need it.
No, they don't.
Why not?
So if you do Year 8 computing, you don't get a result. Okay. If you're in QCS study, you don't get a result. If you're in careers, you don't get a result. So by saying that, we're doing this. So this one's obviously got 3 bits. Student, subject, and result. So we're saying you must record those 2. So if we have students, so if we have our mate Fred again, and IPT, both of them must be in the thing. But we're saying, I'm leaving that optional. Okay, so there are certain subjects in your timetable that you don't get a result. So things like careers and QCS practice, and in Year 8 there's lots of subjects that you do just to experience and you don't get an A, a B, a C. Okay, the last one, the dot coming from the result down here,
Ow.
if we record a result, do we need to record the other 2? So in other words, can I put HA there and leave that blank and that blank? So is that possible?
No.
Would that make any sense to do that? So if we record HA in the thing, we must have things like Mary and geography in our thing, so we would put a dot there. So again, this part here is saying you don't necessarily need to get a result. If we made that mandatory, that would mean in things like careers, you would need to get a result recorded, and that's not necessarily what we're after.